Dad built this, he saved pretty much everything that came with, all of the paperwork that came with everything. And it's been really helpful as I'm trying to go through here and modify the car and or just replace parts, because I've pretty much got everything in here. The new stuff I'm buying, I'm saving the receipts, but they don't come with instruction manuals anymore. All that stuff's online, except for what I'm printing off, like the EFI instructions, which will go into this book once I'm done with them. But what I found out about the fuel level sender is this car originally had a VDO style, which goes from 10 to 180 ohms, low and high. Unfortunately, wasn't smart enough to look this up before I ordered it, so the one I got has a GM 0 to 90 in it. So that explains why when I filled the tank it was reading about half full, and why it reads low or very low very soon, because really you've got barely half the sweep, or just about half the sweep on the bottom end of what it's calibrated for now. But I found that there's a box in there that if you change your dip switch settings from off to off on off, so I got to flip switch number 2 on, that resets it to the existing sender. So I'm endeavoring at this point to find that unit, and I think I did, tucked up underneath the dash, or behind the dash, on this side. Let's see if we can show it. This is, I'm sure, fascinating. But that silver box with all the wires and stuff in it, that's the Dakota Digital box. And it's attached to the dash. So now I got to figure out how to pull the dash out, which I haven't done before, but I have noticed that it moves a little bit. And I pulled the A-pillar trim on the driver's side. It's a nice little fabricated piece. And I've got a screw here, which I think may be what's holding my dash in. So I'm going to pull the A-pillar trim on that side and pop those screws off and see if I can lay this dash forward, which will be kind of helpful if that's all it is, because then I can get behind it and maybe do some other cleaning up, because some of the wiring that I've done in there is kind of hacky at this point, because you don't have a lot of room. But we're going to try that and see if I can find my dip switches. Well, sure enough, that's how it's mounted. Just those two little screws. Big ground bus, all sorts of wiring. Okay, well, this is actually good to know. Actually, this is going to be really good, because now I can figure out how I want to put the wire through for the EFI controller. Now I can figure out how we're going to do this. So that's good. Anyway, now what I think I'm going to do, I got to clean up. I'm going to remove this little switch for now, because it broke. The wires were real short and they pulled off. It's just a ground for the old fan, to run the old fan. Let it actually run through this. I can't believe that switch held up to that, but I may try to figure out how to put an interrupter in there for the to shut the fan off when you're starting the car, and maybe use that hole in the dash for a little switch. I haven't quite decided. Oh, maybe I can get to the bolt and nut that I screwed up when I was dinking around with the hood hinge. Neat. Maybe. Probably not, but got a better shot than I did before. So anyway, I'm going to go in there, try to figure out my dip switches, and fiddle around with a few things. Alright, well, there's all of our dip switches, and according to the thing, it even has them under here, under the cover, for GM90. Right now they are off, 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 which is the VDO gauge. The GM90 is off, on, off. And the rest of them are right. They're related to the tach and some of the other displays. So, and the dimmer adjusts too. That's kind of neat. I'm going to put that cover back on and see what kind of a mess I can make in here. Alright, well, getting that little nut back on is not the easiest thing in the world, but we did it. You'll tape the nut to a wrench trick, hold it in there while reaching around through the window to tighten this bolt that I screwed up and pulled out the other few weeks ago, thinking I could use it as a mount. Wrong. Alright, so that's nice. I don't think it made too much difference, but at least now the hood hinge is held on with all of its screws. So now I think I'm going to get the key, turn it over, and play with the dimmer a little bit. And after I remove the wires for that switch, and see if my fuel gauge works. Alright, so now I'm trying to run this wire, and I've got a little tiny hole in the dash where the choke cable used to run, that if I could unpin this silly little connector, I could get it through there without embiggening the hole. But that's a little tiny Molex connector that I don't have the right tools for, and I really don't want to break it. So I'm just going to drill out the hole a little bit, maybe fill it back in with some black silicone so it's not quite as visible on the firewall, and go from there. Ah well. Alright, well, that's done. Not great, but it'll work. Didn't really want to drill that big a hole in the middle of the damn firewall because it's painted, but oh well. Now the connector's run. And we've got it all the way through, and I'll be able to mount that little controller doohickey somewhere on the dash. Now I snugged up the key because that had gotten a little loose over the years, and now that I could reach the back of it easily, I was just able to hold it, put an 1 1/8 wrench on it, and just snug down the nut that holds the ignition in place. So that should work. And I think we're about ready to put this thing back together and see if it works. So that's going to be next. Get this thing back in, get the covers back on, and I don't know, it's not raining right now, maybe we'll go for a drive, we'll see. Alright, so that's all back together. Started it up, everything seems to work. Basically the wiring in the engine compartment's finished, other than this mess. That's all just the extra stuff, tie wrapped out of the way. Might have to do a little better than that going forward, but for now, I think it works. Still doing all right. Now, if I really want to, I need to get under there and drill and tap a couple of holes for these things. So, I may do that, just for grins, get up under there and put those in. I don't think it's going to be too bad, hopefully. We'll see. Alright, while I was thinking about it, I made a battery hold down strap to try to be a little more in compliance. That's just a piece of the aluminum that used to be on the front of the radiator to kind of keep the radiator protected from the AC condenser. So, repurpose that. Yeah, and now, I thought I was going to take it for a drive, but then I remember it's like, oh, that's right, I got my grandsons here today. So, it's just me and them. So, they're busy in there, at the young age that they are, doing things, and doesn't sound like they're setting the house on fire, so that's pleasant. But I think I am going to get under here finally and try to figure out how to do the bump stops. So that's what we're going to do next. Bump stops on. Hopefully they're about right. Got the engine link snugged up. Smooth, that's what I like. Fuel gauge seems to be reading. I had the car tipped up, so I'll push a little more fuel to the front. So it went up a little bit, which is good. She's getting there. The only thing I'm still procrastinating on is the installation under the running board. I'll get that eventually. But I gotta get another spring on the throttle return because it's only got a single on it right now, and I know I need two. So I gotta find that. But otherwise, she's running pretty good. Not bad. Yeah, the bump stops should be all right. That'll, at a minimum. I honestly think that the springs on the shocks are going to compress fully before it hits the frame, but because there's a brake line that runs through there, I don't want to find that out. So they're in there anyway. They're only like 3/4 of an inch thick, but it's just something to protect that brake line a little bit. And the wiring's all pretty much buttoned up. Yeah, she's coming. She's just about ready. Well, we just got to do a little bit more driving. Maybe we can take it out tomorrow a little bit. It's getting a little late today. I still have the boys. But no, she's doing good. So I guess that's probably it for this update. Just some more little odds and ends, but she's coming along. Y'all take care.